Number 42, Juan Corona. Active in the United States in 1971. Juan targeted migrant farm workers and buried them in shallow graves in peach orchards. His preferred method of killing was a machete. He is confirmed to have killed 25 people, but suspected of many more. He was given life in prison, no parole, and died on March 4th, 2019.
Today in SK history. A Mexican immigrant who in 1973 became the United States' most prolific SK up to that point. Corona took the lives of 25 men over a period of only a few months in 1979. He buried them in the peach orchards where he worked in California. Diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, Corona was treated with 23 courses of electroconvulsive therapy, and health practitioners then declared him recovered. He did live a normal working life for the next 15 years until his series began in 1971. In the first year of his sentence, Corona was stabbed 32 times by a fellow inmate. The next year, his wife filed for divorce. After 46 years in prison, on this day in 2019, he died of natural causes, aged
Juan Corona was a Mexican-American farm labor contractor who became infamous for his role in the murders of 25 farm workers in California in the 1970s. Born in Jalisco, Mexico in 1934, Corona immigrated to the United States in the 1950s and settled in the Sacramento area. In the early 1970s, Corona became a labor contractor, employing migrant workers to pick fruit on the farms in the area. He was known for his charismatic personality and his ability to connect with the workers. In 1971, the bodies of 2 men were discovered in an orchard near Yuba City, California. The victims had been brutally murdered, and their bodies were buried in shallow graves. Over the next few months, more bodies were discovered, all of them migrant workers who had been employed by Corona. Corona was eventually arrested and charged with the murders. At his trial, the prosecution argued that Corona had lured the victims to remote locations, where he would bind, torture, and kill them. The prosecution also presented evidence that Corona had a history of mental illness and a fascination with death. Despite his claims of innocence, Corona was found guilty of all 25 counts of murder and was sentenced to 25 consecutive life sentences. He was sent to the California Medical Facility in Vacaville, where he remained until his death in 2019. The Juan Corona case was one of the largest mass murder trials in American history, and it had a significant impact on the public's perception of migrant worker conditions in California. It also raised questions about mental illness and the death penalty, as Corona's lawyers argued that he was not mentally competent to stand trial. Despite these arguments, however, Corona was ultimately held responsible for the horrific crimes he committed.
This is Juan Corona, a real-life Jason Voorhees. Known as the machete murderer, Corona was responsible for killing 25 migrants he had hired to work as fruit pickers in California during the 1970s. His victims had been hacked to pieces by an 18-inch machete and buried in shallow graves. When sentenced and sent to prison, Corona was attacked by a fellow inmate, being stabbed 32 times and losing an eye. Corona, like Jason's inability to be killed, survived this attack and carried on with his time behind bars before dying of natural causes in 2019, aged 85.